welcome back, level uppers. It is I, David, aka Namor84, here to level up your knowledge on video game boss origins. Now, this is my second video, and today we are going to talk about Final Fantasy 1 bosses. Seeing how there isn't that many, this video will be shorter in length, but you know what? We'll power through it. I'll give you some good information, and you'll be more knowledgeable by the end of this recording. Now, shall we get into it? Alright, just to let you know, the four bosses that I'll be covering in this Boss Origins episode would be the four Fiends and the final boss, Chaos. Now, the first one I want to talk about is Lick, the Fiend of Earth. He appears at the bottom of the Cavern of Earth, and unlike the other Fiends, he is undead, and he looks like a skeleton. In fantasy fiction, a Lick is a type of undead creature. Often such creature is the result of a transformation, as a powerful magician or king strives for eternal life using spells or rituals to bind his intellect to the animated corpse, and therefore achieving a form of immortality. Licks are depicted as being clearly cadaverous, bodies desiccated, or completely skeletal. Licks are often depicted as holding power over hordes of lesser undead creatures, using them as soldiers and servants. Most people would probably be familiar with Licks in other games, most notably WoW, and also maybe even Dungeons and Dragons for the older folk. But they did appear first in fantasy fiction, with different books back in the day, different sword and sorcery type novels. Anyone who's into those novels would know exactly what I'm talking about. But the word lick itself, it has somewhat of a Dutch or German origin, literally meaning corpse. And so that is pretty much how it's presented here in the game as well. Alright, well, the second one that I'm going to be discussing about today is the Kraken. Now, we're probably all familiar with the line, release the Kraken, but I'm going to give a little bit more insight than that on that. Uh, it is the Fiend of Water in the game. Appears in the Sunken Shrine and bears a squid-like form, though his cape and stance give him somewhat a regal appearance. According to the story of the game, 200 years before the game, as the second fiend to awaken, Kraken sank the water crystal shrine to the ocean floor, whereupon the seas raged as the crystal was drained of its power. It's a legendary sea monster of giant proportions that is said to dwell off the coast of Norway and Greenland. The legend may have originated from sightings of giant squid that are estimated to grow 13 to 15 meters, or 40 to 50 feet in length, including the tentacles. The sheer size and fearsome appearance attributed to the Kraken have made it a common ocean-dwelling monster in various fictional works. Now, the Kraken has been extensively described by Eric von Toppeden, Bishop of Bergen, in his Natural History of Norway. Eric made several claims regarding Kraken, including the notion that the creature was sometimes mistaken for an island, and that the real danger to sailors was not the creature itself, but rather the whirlpool left in its wake. However, Eric also described the destructive potential of the giant beast. It is said that if the creature's arms were to lay hold of the largest man of war, they would pull it down to the bottom. According to Eric, Norwegian fishermen often took the risk of trying to fish over Kraken, since the catch was so plentiful. This is where the term "you must have fished on Kraken" comes from. Eric also proposed that a specimen of the monster, perhaps a young and careless one, quote unquote, was washed ashore and died at Alstahag back in 1680. The next fiend that I'm going to be speaking about is Carrie, which is a mistranslation of Kali. Now, Carrie is the fiend of fire. She appears in Mount Golg as a woman with the lower body of a snake and has 6 arms, each wielding a sword. She is based off the Hindu goddess Kali, known as Shiva's consort and also the goddess of death and time. Kali's most common four-armed iconographic image shows each hand carrying a sword, a trishul, a severed head, and skull cup catching the blood of the severed head. The sword signifies divine knowledge, and the human head signifies human ego, which must be explained by divine knowledge in order to obtain moksha. The other 2 hands are in the abhaya and the Virata mudras, which means her initiated devotees will be saved as she will guide them to the here and to the hereafter. She is often depicted naked, which symbolizes her being beyond the covering of Maya, since she is a pure being, consciousness, bliss, and far above Prakriti. She is shown as a very dark woman, as she is Brahman in its supreme unfast form. She has no permanent quality. She will continue to exist even when the universe ends. It is therefore believed that the concept of color, light, good, bad do not apply to her. She is the pure, unmanifested energy, the Ada Shakti, if you will. And that is one heck of a Hindu lesson. Alright, so now we're on to Tiamat, the last of the four fiends. This one's the Fiend of Wind, and she appears at the top of the Flying Fortress and has a multi-headed draconic form. The interesting thing about this one is the fact how closely related it will be to the last final boss when we get to that one, and you'll see what I'm talking about as I talk about both of them. In Mesopotamian religion, it's Sumerian, Assyrian, Akkadian, and Babylonian. Tiamat is a chaos monster, a primordial goddess of the ocean, mating with Apsu, the god of fresh water, to produce younger gods. It is suggested that there are two parts to the Tiamat mythos, the first in which Tiamat is creatrix through a sacred marriage between salt and fresh water, peacefully creating the cosmos through successive generations. The second, Chaos Kampf, Tiamat is considered the monstrous embodiment of primordial chaos, although there are no early precedents for it. Some sources identify her with images of the sea serpent or dragon, much like her description here. Her typing, though, as the Fiend of Wind is a little odd for me, considering that she's pretty much associated with water. Maybe the early game developers didn't understand what to do with her, but as far as that goes, there are, there are no early precedents for being a monstrous embodiment of chaos. Some sources identify her with images of sea serpent and dragon, like I just said again. Oh wow. In the Enuma Elish, the Babylonians' epic of creation, she gives birth to the first generation of deities. She later makes war upon them and is killed by the storm god Marduk. The heavens and the earth are formed from her divided body. Slicing time in half, Marduk made from her ribs the vault of heaven and earth. Her weeping eyes became the source of the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. Her tail became the Milky Way. With the approval of the elder deities, he took from Kingu the tablets of destiny, installing himself as the head of the Babylonian pantheon. Kingu was captured and later was slain. His red blood mixed with the red clay of the earth would make the body of humankind, created to act as the servant of the younger Igigi deities. As you all may well know, or most of you, Chaos is the final boss of the Final Fantasy game. He looks like some winged dragon demon thingy. I really don't know a better description for him. Although I would say that this would probably be what makes him and Tiamat very closely related, as far as both the Chaos image and also the way they look in the game. But Chaos in this context that we're going to look at will be Greek, pre-Socratic Greek. Uh, Hesiod's chaos has often been interpreted as a moving, formless mass from which the cosmos and the gods originated. But Eric Vogelin sees it instead as creatio ex nihilo, much as in the book of Genesis. The term tohu vabohu of Genesis 1-2 has been shown to refer to a state of non being prior to creation rather than the state of matter. Nevertheless, the term chaos has been adopted in religious studies as referring to the primordial state before creation, strictly combining two separate notions of primordial waters or primordial darkness from which a new order emerges in primordial state as a merging of opposites, such as heaven and earth, which must be separated by a creator deity in an act of cosmogony. In both cases, chaos referring to a notion of primordial state contains the cosmos and potentia, but needs to be formed by demiurge before the world can begin to its existence. Well, that's it for this video today, level uppers. I hope it was able to level up your knowledge in Final Fantasy. And speaking of Final Fantasy, my brother is doing a Let's Play on Final Fantasy 6 and the first Final Fantasy. So if you want to take a look at that, go ahead and visit the channel and give those a look, and some likes going on for him as well. Uh, if any of you have any questions or comments, feel free to send them in the comments below. I always take a look at that. Always good to see some feedback. So until next time, guys.